You've got Dinner Falter, Ashkady Chlorella, and Shaw Aaron Cluiche, Lumsa, Séamus Brady, and Matthew Hurley. Welcome back, guys, to another video here on Cluiche with me, Séamus Brady, your host. I'm joined for this one by Matthew Hurley, the Gaelic Statsman. For another episode, we're going to do a weekend review. So obviously we had Camogie action and we had Gaelic football action, and they were the only two codes that were played over the weekend. But we have a lot of talking points. And Matthew, the main thing that I'm going to say here is all the talking points. I know that we, do on your shows. Guys, go check it out if you haven't already. But to be honest, if you're watching me and you don't know Matthew's show, I don't know how you don't. But the reality is, we do on each other's shows the week in review and the GA's weekly news. A lot of the news is actually tied into games, i.e. the poor attendance at the Dublin Meath game, the state of the Leinster Championship, the idiot in the Antrim backroom team who hit the down coach. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. It's all related to games, so we'll dive into that game by game. But an interesting and slightly peculiar weekend that you don't really know what to make of it all.
Suppose so. And thanks for having me on again, Seamus. I suppose out of all the games, the only ones that probably had a bit of a go about them were probably the Wicklow Kildare game and the Camogie Finals. That was about it. The rest of the kind of action, I was watching Antrim and Down on Saturday night, and to be honest, I regretted that decision. I wanted to watch the rugby, Leinster, La Rochelle, and then Meath and Dublin. Like, what can you say about the Leinster Championship? It's a bit of a farce at the moment. And I actually, you were talking about the 42s article that I heard Anthony Boyles and off the ball now this morning, and everything he said, no pun intended, was on the ball. It basically going on about how the game should have been on Park Talton. I banged on about this for weeks. I said this on Twitter. I said this to Aaron on my show last week, and I said it last night on his show. Why the game wasn't played at Park Talton, I don't know. Look, Crow Park has its purpose to have games and all that, but it would have been a great confidence booster for Meath to have the game at Park Talton. Why the Leinster Council couldn't do that, I'm not sure. Like, it was 21,000. They could have easily fitted into Park Talton, or even at worst, fit into Cluiche, have two double headers. Like, I don't know why the Leinster Council don't think outside the box. But anyway, look, looking forward to diving into the action. And are we going to really talk about the games, or going to talk about structures? We don't know, but enjoy the chat anyway.
That's it. Yeah, no, we'll just roll with it. We'll see what happens. I mean, the reality is Dublin Meath is like, we can just play our show from last year talking about Dublin and Meath, or the year before, and guarantee nobody will really know the difference. Dublin slapped up Meath. Anyway, should the Leinster Championships be played? We've been having the same conversation over and over again. It's like we're just twiddling thumbs waiting for Meath to come back. But the reality is that everybody bangs on about the Leinster Championship as if, once upon a time it was the most amazing thing in the world, and provincial championships were the most amazing thing in the world. I've still always maintained, like, it's still bad for teams that can't win the provincial championships. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, even if you had, say, Meath and Kildare that were right breathing down Dublin's neck, just like they were at the start of the 2000s, it's still not a great competition for teams like Carlow, like, teams that aren't going to win it. And we're never going to win it, even when the Leinster Championship was as competitive as it's ever been. And my whole thing is for player retention, for keeping players in Ireland and not getting tempted by going to Australia and everything like that. The main thing you need is a realistic goal that they can aim for in the season. We want to win Division 4. We want to win the Junior Championship. You look at it, like, for example, like, there's so many examples. You look at the Carlow Rising. They seem like they were on top of the world in 2018. They got out of Division 4. They beat Kildare. And then you're thinking, are you going to win Leinster? No. Are you going to win the All-Ireland? Definitely not. So how much further can you go? Because the Tailteann Cup wasn't there at the time. So then Brendan Murphy, their best player at the time, gets an offer to go to London when they're at the peak of their form, by the way, and he's off. Because deep down, there's only so far that this can go, and then you'll run into Dublin, and everybody's like, oh, but they did great against Dublin. They lost by 9 points. Like, is that what we're classing as great? They did great, for a Division 4 team that's just got promoted. But it wasn't like, oh, Dublin really dodged a bullet there, or they had Dublin in the last. No, they didn't. They were nowhere close to beating Dublin. They did good. But if that's the max you're going to get to, where you put in a a good performance in a defeat, and then you get an offer to go to London or Australia, you're on the boat, you're gone. And like, this is what the structures need to take into account. Realistic ambitions for every team that competes, so they have a better chance of keeping the best players, so that we see the best players and see the best games. But yeah, you are right. Like, we are going to spend most of the time talking about the structures and everything like that. But before we go with the doom and gloom, we're going to go with the absolute euphoria. Tipperary, of course, winning their first Camogie League title since 2004. So they won this game 113 to 15 points against Galway in Croke Park. Now, I was delighted to be there. I got to interview the Tipperary manager, and I got to interview Karen Kennedy for Balls.ie at the end of the game. Karen Kennedy, of course, player of the match and the goal scorer, the captain. They were ecstatic. You could really, really see how much it meant to them. And it was Karen's goal that ultimately made the difference. However, a very, very dramatic finish. Carrie Dolan getting that free at the end, you would have been absolutely convinced that ball was going straight between the posts. The conditions got really wet and windy and swirly in the stadium, and all of a sudden, like, there was a gust of wind swirling around the stadium. That made the strike a lot more difficult than it would have been had it been calm. Carrie puts the shot wide. Tipperary win. Couldn't be more dramatic than that.
Exactly, and in many ways, the Camogie actually saved the day in Croke Park because of what happened afterwards at the beating Dublin game. And this was a brilliant game. And I said this start last night as well. Both sides give it their all. Both sides having brilliant performances, and ultimately a new winner. And that's all we need. 20 years since Tipperary won the league title, and they did us yesterday. Fair play to them. Like, Emer McGrath wasn't probably on her top form. I know she scored 8 points, but none from play. But you had Karen Kennedy up forward, and I think the analysts before the game, Ursula Jacob and Anna Geary, were talking about the matchups between Karen Kennedy and Anya Keane in the Galway centre-back line. And Karen Kennedy got the better of her. Brilliant performance from her, and 1-3. Like, you can't get much better than that. 3 goals and 3 points in the whole league campaign, all for play. And she got an All-Star last season, and she's en route to get another one this year. Like, she was absolutely brilliant on that day. And to be fair, like, Karine Blair got the winner, and that took guts to take up that shot, especially for a quarterback. So fair play to Karine for getting that shot away. Galway tried their best. Obviously, Niamh Mallon from down coming onto the pitch got 3 wonderful scores. Brilliant performance from her, I have to say. And she might be an outlet for Galway later on down the season. So will Liam Kilkenny. She came on as well, added a bit of oomph to that Galway attack as well. You carry Dolan up front. So Galway still have a lot to build on. I suppose the negative for Galway is the defensive line. They've taken a few hits with injuries. I suppose the positive for Galway, the college championship's not there for them because of Mayo, Roscommon, all them not being good. It's well documented. So they'll have the All-Ireland series, I think, in June. So they have a lot of time to prepare for that. But Roisin Black is now gone out with a hamstring injury. And according to Joe Canning in the commentary, Shauna Healy and Sarah Dervin won't be back this season because they're having children this year. So that's 3 defenders gone out of your full back line. So Galway will be just hoping that Roisin Black will be back for the championship, because she's an outstanding defender, number one, and you need to know the defenders, number 2. Siobhan Gardner pulled out of the game as well early on. That's another defender out of the game. And Ava Crowe played it. I think she was only minor last season to come in, and she did a good job, to be fair to her. But look, it was a new experience for many of that Galway team, and they're kind of going into a new era now with the likes of Niamh Kilkenny still there. Niamh Mallon is carrying them a bit. Ailish O'Reilly had a very good performance yesterday, but yesterday was Tipperary's day. And I just wonder as well, with Cautafan coming back in May, and that is confirmed, would we think that Tipperary are serious All-Ireland contenders here? Because you have Emer McGrath, top scorer of the league, top scorer overall, and top scorer from play. You have Karen Kennedy, you've Cautafan, you've Karine Blair, you've Clodagh McIntyre, you've Nicole Walsh doing a brilliant role as the goalkeeper. I think Tipperary are serious All-Ireland contenders, and that's with Cork still have some players available to them. Kilkenny still have players available to them. Galway still have the likes of Niamh Mallon to come on. That's with all of them performing well, and Tipperary coming into the equation. So are Waterford. So I think it's only a good thing for Camogie that these sorts of teams are coming in to the top range of the game of Camogie. And congratulations to Tipperary, to everyone involved, and congratulations to Dennis Kelly as well for getting the league title to his name as well.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely fantastic. And look, everything you said there is spot on. What was interesting as well is the character that they showed. Like, Galway went 8 points to 2 ahead. Like, Tipperary really started badly. Galway shot ahead. Aoife Donoghue very much to the fore. And then Tipperary clawed them back, score by score. Emer McGrath very much leading the way. Every free she got, she pretty much converted. She gave a very good quote after the game. She was saying, like, you know, I'm practicing in the field for when I'm in Croke Park, and then when I'm in Croke Park, I'm pretending I'm in the field and everything like that. And that just kept, you know, the scoreboard ticking over for Tipperary. Then it gets to half time, and this is what was very interesting. It brings it back to the point that you were saying about how serious are they as All-Ireland contenders. Look, the reality is the third quarter, Tipperary and Galway went head-to-head, and up until the 45th minute, it was score for score. And then in that 5 to 10 minutes after, it was Tipperary that kicked on and put enough distance between themselves and Galway that they were ultimately able to hang on. Karen Kennedy getting the goal, few key scores as well, particularly obviously the one from Karine Blair, which put them back in front. And Galway, you know, on the other hand, what a lot of people are always saying as well is Galway actually learned a lot from this game as well. They learned that Niamh Mallon needs to start. She was absolutely unbelievable when she came on. Niamh Nyland as well was really impressive when she came on. Roisin Black's loss was huge. Because I think she's the best fullback in the country in Camogie. I think she's absolutely magnificent. She's the captain. And when she went off, you got a real sense of that's a huge loss. Like, that's a massive loss. That it was like watching, it was watching the captain go off the field. And when she went off, you did feel like it was a massive boost to Tipperary. But then again, for Galway, like, would you take Roisin Black being gone if it meant that Caught Devan was also gone? Like, it's an interesting question to pose. For Tipperary as well, what they've done compared to, say, what Waterford have done is they have beaten one of the big three in Croke Park in a final. They have done that. Waterford have, you know, played in Croke Park against Cork and they got annihilated. So I would say if either of them is more likely to break the glass, really break the glass and win an All-Ireland title, I would say in this moment in time it is Tipperary. And I really, really am excited about them going into this year because they have a cracking team, a brilliant coach who speaks with, you know, real hunger and enthusiasm, and you can tell he really wants to do something with this Tipperary side. They're a young side as well. Like, most of them are in their mid-20s. There's real potential there for an All-Ireland with Tip, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what they produce in this championship. Moving on to the 1B final. Now, this one was a shock. I was really, really surprised by this one because the form that Wexford had displayed, I thought there was no way Dublin were winning this, but Dublin did win this. They beat Wexford 2-10 to 2-8 at the Set2 Arena. A late goal in injury time by Grace O'Shea broke Wexford's hearts and snatched victory for the Dubs. I wasn't expecting this. Even as a dub, I thought surely Wexford had taken this, but Dublin proven the upset.
Exactly. What a performance from Grace O'Shea. 1-3 from play. She kept Dublin in the game when it was needed in the first half. And what I will say about Wexford, they did do well up until now, but they relied heavily on this game for Ciara O'Connor for scores. 2-7 overall. I think 75% shot accuracy as well. She was absolutely outstanding. But the only other scorer other than her was Laura Dempsey from cornerback. So Wexford really struggled in that department, and it was clear to see on the pitch. Ashley Marr did very well at centre back, her new role as captain as well. And I think she's relishing it. She has done really well for Dublin. And then you look at the midfield line as well. Like Ashton O'Neill did well in the forwards. Like, you had a lot of good performances for Dublin, and fair play to them for digging it out on the day and getting it over the line. And like, these two sides showed a lot of potential in this game. Like, it was Ciara O'Connor scored a goal on one end in Dublin. You thought they were beaten. Then Grace O'Shea scores that goal. And Wexford could have easily won it in the last puck of the game as well. He hit the post in the last play of the game. I think, I'm not sure who it was off the top of my head who actually hit the post for Wexford, but Dublin cleared it out in the end. They won the game, and what a win for them. And I think both of these sides in particular would fancy their chances going into the Leinster Championship. I do think Kilkenny are still probably the best team in Leinster, but I think Dublin and Wexford aren't far behind. They're a really good side, both of them, and Dublin won the day. And Dublin were Division 1A last year. They bounced straight back up, so fair play to them for doing that. And yeah, it's a good trophy for Dublin to have, and especially with the likes of Ali Toomey leaving the panel over the last few seasons, to get a trophy on the board, to get promoted back to 1A, it's a massive achievement for the Dubs.
It certainly is. And like, What's the most interesting about that is you look at like the Ashton Mar move, for example, like that she moved back to centre back. I wasn't expecting that because she was everything to our forward line. She was exactly the type of player that we put the ball through at all times. She was the go-to. And now that she's moved back to centre back, it's like we've had to use different options. And look, I'm not getting carried away with this win. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we're going to beat Kilkenny now in Leinster. Like we still have a gap to close on Kilkenny, no doubt about it. But it certainly has given me a lot of confidence that we are improving. No doubt about it. We are improving. We're getting better. And beating Wexford is a massive, massive bonus to this team because we saw the form that Wexford were in throughout the league. That's certainly something that the girls can hold their head high in when they head into the championship. The 2A final was also in Croke Park. I was at this one. Westmeath 4-8, Derry 16 points. This was a classic example of goals win games. Westmeath hit 3 goals in the first quarter. It was very much a blitz. They just absolutely burst into the game. Sheila McGrath with 2 goals, Megan Dowdall with 1, and that was in the first quarter. Left them 3-3 to 7 points clear at half time. Derry launched an amazing comeback in the second half. Anya Barton was fantastic. They got the game back to 2 points, and like just as they are 1 point off them, 2 points off them, a fourth goal from Megan Dowdall, her second personally, that put the final nail in the coffin, and Westmeath pushed on to win.
Yeah, it was a brilliant win for Westmeath, and brilliant for Megan Dowdall as well. She was in the TU Dublin team as well. That won the Ashbourne Cup last year and got to the final this year. So like she showed brilliant form in that competition, in the college competition, and she showed a lot of form in this game too. 2 goals and 3 points. Sheila McGrath was outstanding in the first half. Like that sidestep for the third goal was absolutely brilliant. Brilliant initiative, bit of play, and fair play for doing that. Derry fought back and did very well, and they're in the senior championship this season. They'll be hoping to stay up in that. But for Westmeath to beat a senior side when they're intermediate themselves, I think that's a massive achievement for them. Congratulations to everyone involved there. And they did very, very, very well in fairness. And you did brilliant performance all over the field, especially with the likes of Sheila McGrath and Megan Dowdall in the full forward line. Holly Dowdall did very well in the middle of the park as well. So, yeah, brilliant performances from Westmeath altogether. And they'll go into the intermediate championship now with a lot of confidence. I know Meath are there. They got to the final last season. Only Kerry are there. They have the likes of Jackie Horgan. They'll be a decent side to win the intermediate championship. So I think Westmeath will go into that championship as slight favourites, but you never know. Like Kerry, Meath might be waiting around the corner. So brilliant win for Westmeath. And if they were to get promoted to senior this year from intermediate, it'd be a massive achievement too.
It certainly would. And one thing that they have is pace. Like particularly Megan Dowdall. Then there were other players as well that I was hugely, hugely impressed with. For like obviously Sheila McGrath with 2 goals, like just an unbelievable spread of scores across the field, and yeah, just very, very impressed with them. And worthy 2A champions, no question about it. The other 3 Camogie League Finals, which happened now, one of these happened on March 23rd, just to refresh your memory. The Cork beat Tipperary, Cork B beat Tipperary B, that is, on March 23rd in the 2B final by 13 points to 10. The 3A final, Armagh beat Cluiche 14 points to 2-7 in Abbottstown. That was over the weekend. And in the Division 4 final in Darver, Tyrone 3-16, Wicklow 10 points. So massive congratulations to Tyrone as well. And just your opinions as well, because that's pretty unique what Camogie do. They have obviously the B teams for the counties. Me personally, it's not something that I like. I know it gives everybody a go and everything, but I think if we were to implement that in football, I think Dublin would absolutely annihilate teams with their B team. I think we'll get into that later on with the Dublin Meath game. It's something that, look, while it's working now, it's a great idea. But I think, like me personally, playing club football in Dublin, like you have Kilmacud Croke's B team is in the Dublin B Championship. Nafina's B team is in the Dublin B Championship. And they're one of the most successful or competitive teams in that championship. So it paves the way for franchises almost.
And to add to that as well, in Cork, Nemo Rangers are the third grade in Cork football as well, the B team that is in the Premier Intermediate Championship. So, yeah, you'd have Nemo Rangers playing against Bantry Blues or Bandon or some big clubs. And, yeah, that's another thing as well. And, yeah, I've said this before. I don't like the plan with B teams. I just think it's kind of it sets the smaller counties down a bit, and that's why I was absolutely delighted that Derry and Meath were in the intermediate final last season rather than the Cork B team against the Galway B team, because new counties came to the fray, and that was the decent thing about it. You look at Antrim down coming up through the ranks in the last few seasons, a few other counties as well. Meath themselves getting to the final, outstanding achievement for them. I'd like to see more of that rather than just the B teams reaching the final every time. It just gets a bit boring, to be honest with you. And yeah, I think there's a B championship. There used to be a B championship in the football, actually, with the junior championship. I don't know, did you follow that at all? I think Kerry's junior team played against Leitrim's junior team before Cork and Mayo a few seasons ago at the qualifiers, and Killian Spillane was actually on that Kerry team. So it might actually pave the way for these sorts of players, but at the same time, it is a bit downgrading to these smaller counties, and I just don't like it in many ways. I did like the way the junior championship was set, in fairness. Like, you'd have Kerry's second team against Cork's second team, or Cork's second team against Tip's second team, and it'd be 11 playing field in that sort of sense. But with the Camogie as it is now, you'd have Cork's second team against Westmeath in the intermediate championship this year. That's not fair. It's just not fair. And I just think, look, they can have their own competition. I think in the league, they had their own competition, to be fair, to Division 2B and Division 3B, and they should even do that for the championship. But for the championship as it is now, I just don't think it's fair having Westmeath's A team play against, let's say, Galway's B team, and Galway's B team beat them and get to Croke Park for a final. I just don't think it's fair, Seamus. And yeah, that's the one thing in Camogie that I'd probably banish.
Yeah, no, that's and Scots. I think that's another thing that I'd get rid of. If it's the players' will, they should listen to the players. Here, obviously, we were talking on the weekend preview off area, saying about the Off the Ball show with Sarah O'Donovan, talking about it, and Sarah O'Donovan just always speaks absolute sense. Both of us have had the privilege of doing work with Sarah. She's absolutely knows her stuff, and she smashed it with her points made. It's not a nice thing when the players literally say what they collectively want, and it's just like no, and no real good reason is given. It's just kind of like no for the sake of it. But yeah, are we ready to go? We stretch before we get into this one. What an absolute shambles this is. As Colin O'Rourke himself said, the Leinster Championship is a shambles. Dublin 3-19, Meath 12 points at Croke Park. Dublin didn't even play well. That's the crazy thing about this game. They've beaten what is traditionally one of their biggest rivals. They've beaten them by an outrageous tally. And yet, we can honestly sit here and say, were Dublin at their best? No. And Meath never, ever looked, not only never looked like they were going to beat Dublin or get close to them, they never looked like they were going to score a goal. And the worst thing for me watching the game is, it's like, they weren't even terrible. Like, you know, when Dublin beat Meath in 2014, I think it was, and beat them by like 15 points, Meath were shocking that day. Meath actually did put it up to Dublin for a while. And you're still on the end of this atrocious result that has you genuinely scratching your head thinking, where on earth do you go from here?
Exactly so. And yeah, there's a few things. Number one, the Croke Park thing. Why can't this game be played at Park Halton? It was a massive opportunity to get some fans in, to get the Leinster Championship back up at the pedestal again. But they just didn't take it. They put it in Croke Park. And actually, Aaron, I was speaking to Aaron now yesterday, and obviously you were in the media box yourself. Aaron was up at the hill, and he actually went into the game after the Camogie because he left the house after the Kildare-Wicklow game. He was watching GA go. And he actually said there was actually Tipperary and Galway Camogie fans leaving the ground when Dublin and Meath were about to go on. And it just epitomised that.
I met people that were leaving.
And why wouldn't they? It's just a situation there.
What was crazy is actually, Matthew, get this. I met people that were leaving after the Westmeath Derry game, and they were saying, "Oh, I'd love to be able to stay for the Galway tip. I don't really care about the Dublin Meath though."
Yeah,
and I was like, my goodness, like 20 years ago, Dublin Meath was sold out in Croke Park. I'll give you a stat here. So this is via Balls.ie's Instagram page. So 2010 Leinster semi-final when Meath beat Dublin. Do you want to guess the attendance?
60,000.
Yeah, 60,035. Attendance yesterday, 21,445. That is a drop of nearly 40,000 fans. A drop of nearly 40,000 fans. Bear in mind, social media wasn't around really the last time that Meath beat Dublin. Instagram didn't exist. This idea of promoting the game was like, we should be able to do it way better. There's no reason why attendances should be down. And across the board, we're seeing it in Irish sport. Rugby's never been as popular as it is right now. The League of Ireland attendances are up 135% in the last 2 years. So other sports are going up because they are promoting and they're putting the games on at interesting times where people can go. And then on top of that, there's competition. Jeopardy, I don't care saying this, Jeopardy is what sells sport. So Denise here says, to be honest, I was surprised over 21,000 was at a Leinster Championship game. And like genuinely, I was listening to you and Aaron talking live when you were saying, like, if you were a Meath fan, why would you go to this game? You know what's coming. You know you're going to get ripped apart. And, like, you know you're going to get ripped apart. And the point about this is, that I'm just saying here, is that Jeopardy is what makes a sporting event great. Not being sure of the result is what draws the fans. If there's debate, then you're doing something right. There's no debate with the Leinster Championship. It's a foregone conclusion before it even kicks off. Dublin now have gone 13 years winning Leinster in a row. Instagram didn't exist the last time Dublin lost in the Leinster Championship. There's only 2 players on the Dublin panel that were even on the panel last time they lost. There's not one player playing football currently outside of Dublin who has a Leinster Championship medal. Nobody thought that Meath were going to win that game. Nobody. And they're supposed to be the team that are closest to Dublin in the Leinster Championship. So where do we go from here?
That's the issue. You hit the nail on the head there, Seamus. It's the most like ironic thing about it, because Meath are the second best team in Leinster and they lost by 16 points.
Yeah.
That's basically, like, it's just, and I do think you say that what sells sport is competition. I don't want to bring soccer into it in every podcast and stuff like that, but look at the Premier League, for example. Look at Luton Town. They played against Liverpool this year, a title challenger. I know they've fallen off a bit, but that's another discussion for another day. But Luton Town welcomed Liverpool to Kenilworth Road, a tiny venue, 10,000 people. The game was 1-1. Luton had a clearly inferior team to Liverpool, but they still got a result out of that game. What would have been good for the Leinster Championship yesterday was have that game at Park Townsend. And I keep banging on about this. Why do they miss the boat with this opportunity? This was a big opportunity with Dublin playing away in the Leinster Quarter Finals and years and years. And this is the 1 year against Meath and you play in Croke Park.
I think it is what Aaron said. I think it just comes back to, you can fit 11,000 in Port Talton, and however bad the attendance was going to be in Croke Park, it still would have been higher than 11,000. I think it comes down to the bottom line again. And like, the reality is that the fan experience, in my opinion, is being knocked. Because if you look at it, for example, don't get me wrong, Croke Park was nice to be in yesterday. There was a nice atmosphere, especially for the Camogie League Finals. But there was a weird atmosphere around Croke Park. Like Desi said it in the post-match press conference. He said the crowd felt strange. The time of year that it's on in early April. Like, what is the championship on at this hour? And the thing is that, like, I met people that were Dublin fans, like genuine, like diehard Dublin fans who didn't even really know the game was on. Like, oh, we're playing Meath today. Like, and that was a team that Dublin had life and death with 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And like, the thing is that, like Colin Parkinson was saying on his podcast, obviously big shout out to Smaller Fish GA, he was saying like he'd love if Meath went in and just upended a few of the Dublin lads in the first few minutes. Big shoulder, big block down, like let Dublin know that they're here to give them a challenge and everything. And while like that kind of attitude I don't always agree with it, because I'm like, yeah, like you really think nobody's tried that with Dublin before? like to go in and hit them a big shoulder. Like Dublin have been hit with everything. But it is right in a sense, like Meath were so nice to Dublin. Like I seen a substitute come on, and like the first, I know that it's general respect and everything, and I don't recall exactly who it was, but it was a substitute that they brought on, and he was being picked up by Owen Merchant. And the first thing he did when he got put on was he very eagerly reached out to shake Owen Merchant's hand. And I'm like, your best teams, like Liam Hayes would have walked over and stitched them a loaf. Now, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. It's not. And it's not something that we accept or condone. But the point that Colin Parkinson was making is Meath had an identity back then. They were tough as nails. You didn't mess with anyone on that Meath team. You had people like Mick Lyons, Liam Hayes, Kevin Foley, who were tough as old boots. And they probably crossed the line a lot. But they weren't to be messed with, and they didn't back down from anyone. And if they lost a match like that in the Leinster Championship, they would have gone down fighting. They would have gone down swinging. And the way that Meath, Aaron said it right. The way that Meath just seemed like quite content to lose by 8 points was something that you just thought 30 years ago, I'd say, if you're at that game, that you would never, ever have seen it. Jack asked here, was it Jack O'Connor? I'm honestly not sure. It was 20-something that he had on his back. I think, I don't know. But, and look, it's nice to see that respect between the teams. But my point is when you're seeing about Liam Hayes, do you see that interview where Liam Hayes spoke about how he would go about setting up a team against Dublin? And he's saying he'd have the lads in the dressing room. He'd be like McCarthy, Kilkenny, Fenton. And you're just going to put an absolute pit bull on them and try and stop them from playing their game. Now, is that something we want to see? No. But do we want to see it more than Dublin absolutely slapping Meath up every year and less people turning up year on year? Yes. It is. We want to see Meath be competitive, man. We want to, as he said in that piece, Parkinson, I know it banged on. Football needs Meath. And the Leinster Football Championship really needs Meath.
Yeah, it does. And that's the be all about it. And even when you look at not just the 90s, but the 2000s and the 2010s, Mickey Honey Badger Burke, he'd give a few loaves into them Dubliners. Yeah. And I've been positive about Meath, and they do have good young players, and they won the All-Ireland Minor Championship 2 years ago. I do think there's still time to develop. But even the thing yesterday, I think it was Jack O'Connor actually, and he had a very good Tailteann Cup last season. He's a good up-and-coming player. But your biggest rivals with Dublin, why are you going on and shaking hands? I know it's good sportsmanship. I actually seen this. It was actually shown on RT yesterday. Like it just shows a sign of weakness more than anything, and it's just not great to see. Like that'd be like next week. Say, I don't know, John O'Rourke or some car player like a Mark Cronin, for example, comes on against Kerry and comes on and shakes Tyce Morley's hand. Yeah. In Killarney. Like, what is this? Like, you'd be expected them to give a few loaves, and obviously it isn't the right thing to do, and we'll get onto the Antrim stuff in a bit, and you don't want to be overzealous with it. But at the same time, you need that bit of oomph into a game like that.
My thing is, right, shake hands, hit in the shoulder. Do both.
Yeah.
Shake hands, we're going to go at this. And the reality is a lot of the Dublin and Meath lads, if you listen to them, a lot of them say, do you know what? You'd sit and have a pint with him after. Like, do you know what I mean? People that used to absolutely box the head off each other on the field, but then they'd sit and have a pint together in the pub after. And like, that they were proper fierce competitors, but it's like that they knew you're the same as me, you're just from Meath or you're just from Dublin. That was the rivalry between those teams. Another comment in here from Jackie says, good evening, lads. The sad reality is the Leinster Championship is dead for at least the next decade. Intervention by the GAA is needed. Intervention has been needed because Meath winning in 2010, like I remember this, Meath winning in 2010 was like nobody saw that coming. I remember at the time walking into the ground, and I remember I was 15 minutes late. I went with my dad. I remember I was only 9 years old, but I do remember still being like, what? Dublin are losing? Like, it was like Dublin don't lose Leinster games. Dublin, since 2005, Matthew, have won all but one Leinster Championship, and that was 2010. Since 2005. So how long is that?
That's 19 years.
So they've won 18 out of 19 Leinster Championships.
Well, to be fair, 17 out of 19. They'll win it this year. Well, 18.
You've got Offaly standing in the way the next round. That's not going to be any issue to Dublin. And then Louds in the Leinster final. Again, people will hype up Loud and say, oh, Loud got slapped up last year in the Leinster final.
To be fair, Seamus, Kildare deserve a bit of respect.
Kildare, but we'll get on to them. They did their best to throw it away against Wicklow.
True, but Kildare are more big team, big team.
Be ahead of
for big events more than out.
Kildare should have beaten Dublin last year.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I wouldn't hold my breath, man. I wouldn't hold my breath. It's one of those things that if you look at it, for me, again, simple fix is to just kind of do them as a separate thing to the championship. Do them as a separate, Desi Farrell and Colin O'Rourke were both asked in the post-match press conference what they thought about the Leinster Championship, and both of them didn't speak well of it. Colin O'Rourke gave off this vibe that he didn't even think that they were going to beat Dublin. Yeah. On any level, he didn't think that they were going to beat Dublin, and that must be really disheartening for Meath fans to hear a legend of your county, someone who literally has done it all, come in with this team and go, yeah, you know what it is. It's not happening today. We're not winning today. And while he is talking about, oh, well, it's a young squad and we're building and all. Meath have been in rebuild for a decade. Every single year now, Meath, it's one step forward, one step back. They find a player, they lose another one. One year it was Ben Brennan, it was Mickey Newman, it was Cillian O'Sullivan. Next year it's Thomas O'Reilly, who's their main man. Next year it's Jordan Morris. Next year it's... Do you know what I mean? Every year they have a new guy who's their main guy. And then the next year he's gone travelling because he probably looks at it and goes, do I want to stay and get absolutely slapped up by Dublin again? Nah. And the reality is, I guarantee if you were to compare this team to the team that played against Dublin in 2020 during COVID, I say there's a lot of lads that are no longer there.
Exactly, and the thing is, even Keane McBride came back yesterday and they provided a good few catches as well, and he's just come back from AFL. He might think, to hell with this. I'm going straight back down. I'm going to join down to the Sun in Sydney rather than sit in a soda Scrum Park.
But you look at it, would you rather have the career that Zach Toohey had, or would you rather have the career that one of the Laois lads has stuck around it?
Colin Begley or somebody like that. To be fair, Colin Begley is a good heart of that, and I've chatted before, brilliant football brain, but I'd rather have Zach Toohey. I don't think that's even a question.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying is that it's about prospects for the GAA, and the reality is that people need hope to think that they can beat Dublin. And it's I'd love to actually I'd love to sit down with one of the Meath lads over a pint or something and just be did you really think you were going to beat Dublin? On any level, did you think you were going to beat Dublin? And then if their answer is no, that's how bad the Leinster Championship has gone. Desi Farrell literally admitted that this game is to ease Stephen Cluxton, Michael Fitzsimons and James McCarthy back into action.
And the thing is with this, Seamus, actually,
it's not what the league is for.
Yeah, exactly. But what I did I did stats obviously on the game yesterday. They were a bit irrelevant. The only relevant stat really was Stephen Cluxton having 55-56% of his kickouts won, and Owen Sheehan, to be fair to mention, and off the ball this morning. And to be in comparison to the All-Ireland final, Cluxton had 100%.
Yeah. So
could you see that as a positive? To be fair, Meath did very well in the kick out in the first half, but I just think they tired in the second half. I just think that's down to strength and conditioning, to the soulless nature of Croke Park. Imagine if the game was on at Park Talton. I would say
Go ahead.
I would say first of all, Seamus, a few things. Number one, I don't think Sean Butler goal would have stood. Number two, I think there would have been a bit of atmosphere at halftime. But because it's on in Croke Park, there's no pressure on the referee. There's no pressure on Dublin. They can just waltz whatever they do. And I feel so strongly about this, Seamus. I really do. I think every game other than the Leinster final in football should be outside Croke Park. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's getting to that point now because it's too easy for Dublin. Like the Offaly game is confirmed for Croke Park. What score is that going to be? Offaly are a worse team than Meath in the Allianz League. I wouldn't be
Is it
surprised,
actually
Seamus.
confirmed for Croker? Oh, it is. Yeah, it's a double header, isn't it?
It's a double header with Kildare load, yeah. And what I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if it's between 25 and 30 points. And that's not a slight on Offaly. I do think Jack Bryan at Cormac, they are good young players. But the confidence of these young players will be sucked out of them by the time 2 weeks' time comes.
Yeah. You've got
and it's just the nature of it is really, really poor.
Yeah. Jack says, were you at the game, Seamus? I was indeed. I was in the media box. I was there with Balls.ie. Absolutely privileged to be there to cover the games for that media. And then commenting here from Patrick Cahill, he says, watching Meath for decades as an Armagh supporter, I always thought of Meath as the ultimate in physical teams, feared around the country. Sad to watch that demise yesterday. That's it. Yeah, like the one that literally perfectly said there, Patrick, like the most feared team in the country has become a soft touch. Like you literally, half of that Meath team you wouldn't want to run into down a dark alley, like all tough as old boots. And yet now they look in awe of Dublin. It's like they're there like, oh, I get to mark Brian. Oh, I get to mark Kieran Kilkenny. Wow. Like, come on, man. Get into them. Like,
yeah.
My thing is you look at it, for example, because you have to look back at Meath. Why were Roscommon able to draw with Dublin and Croker? Monaghan stuck in it till the final 5 minutes. Mayo have been putting it up to Dublin for a decade. Why are Meath and Kildare so far off? Like,
and what I will say, and a lot of people ridiculed Paul Flynn last night for his comment that Meath and Kildare need to step up. And that's the same sort of people that think, oh yeah, Dublin's the problem because Dublin are doing well. We'll just blame Dublin. That's the issue. I do think, and I've disagreed with Paul Flynn in the past. I've agreed with him sometimes, but I think he was banging the money last night. I think Kildare and Meath need to do better. It's the same with Cork and Munster. These historical counties need to step up their game. I think to be fair, we go on.
I want to take a look at one stat. I want to see when's the last time that Kildare or Meath stayed in Division 1. Like,
yeah,
surely it's early. I'm going to look it up now. Allianz Leagues, 2013.
Yeah, but like it's just. I think Paul Flynn was absolutely correct last night. Like, yeah, Kildare haven't put it up to Dublin other than complaining last season. Meath haven't put it up to Dublin in many years. They only put it up to them in 2021, and we were mentioning that during the week, and that was as poor as Dublin were. That was an opportunity to beat them. So, like, it's just a situation where they need to improve, and I do think, like, with the underage that's there, Kildare were the last 220 All-Ireland finals. Meath were All-Ireland minor champions in 2021 or 2020, around that time. They should be competing better.
Mm-hmm.
With the underage structures that are there. And that's the main thing about it. Yeah.
Kildare, last time they stayed in Division 1 was 2013. So, I mean, how are you going to point the finger at us? Like, you don't have your own house in order. So, like, It's not like if we were bad, all of a sudden Kildare would be mopping up Leinster titles. Like, the reality is Dublin, especially Dublin in the late 2000s, were very beatable. Hence why in back-to-back years in 08 and 09, we got our ass handed to us by Tyrone and Kerry in the quarterfinals. We were not All-Ireland champions, and yet we were still winning Leinster titles at a canter. So that's a question that needs to be looked within. Like, and that Kildare team that was under McGeeney, that was an evolving team, and they were very good around 2010, 2011. That's the last time I feared another team in Leinster. I really thought that Kildare team
Wexford in 2011, possibly.
Wexford should have won, but it was one of those where I thought Dublin were just bad. Do you know what I mean? That Dublin just didn't play well. I thought Wexford were very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think you play that Dublin team against that Wexford team 10 times. I think Dublin win 9 of them. I think if you go against Kildare, I think Dublin win 6 of them. I think Dublin were slightly better, but Kildare really gave us hell. Like that Bernard Brogan stupid free that wasn't a free is ultimately what got them over the line. What got us over the line against Kildare in 2011. And I think Kildare, particularly 2010, they'll look back on that year and be like, we should have won Leinster that year. Louth caught them in the quarterfinals. I remember Ray Finnegan scoring a worldie of a goal, and that was it. Kildare left that behind them. When you look at how easily they beat Meath in the All-Ireland quarterfinal, I think it's something that they definitely would have been looking back on thinking, God, we left that one behind us, because Dublin were taken out in the other side.
Exactly.
And look, it's something that, look, we find ourselves here. It's something that, as you know, as the comment in there from Jack said, like the Leinster Championship needs an intervention. And hopefully, like, we haven't even touched on the game. The goals came from Sean Bugler. Steps should have been a free out. Paul Mannion got the other one. Wasn't a great goal, but just broke out to him. And then Conor O'Callaghan got the last one right on the final whistle. It's nothing that we can take from this. Dublin were not great, and yet still won at a canter. It's something that ultimately doesn't feel great to watch, especially when you see what the Leinster Championship was. Jack asked here, when was the last time Kildare won the Delaney Cup? It was 2000, Jack.
Yeah.
2000. Unbelievable how long ago that is. Neither of us were alive, Matthew. So by winning that game, Dublin go on and they'll play against Offaly in the Leinster semi-final in Croke Park. Offaly, although in this game, we will give them credit where credit is due. They were very good in this game. At half-time, the sides were level, 1-5 to 8 points. Sean Fitzpatrick's goal kept Laois level at half-time. Offaly in the second half, though, absolutely were the better team, scoring 2-5. The 2 goals came from Keith O'Neill and then Jordan Hayes. Offaly getting a good victory over Laois.
Yeah, brilliant win over the rivals more than anything. And I think the James Kelly red card in the first half told a lot in this game, and Laois kind of struggled after that. It was kind of a miracle that they were level at half-time, but Offaly pushed on with those goals. Keith O'Neill was outstanding, 1-3 in this game. Jordan Hayes getting the other goal as well. And brilliant win for Offaly. And they should be credited for a good performance in a game that most people actually expected that they lose. So well done to Offaly for winning this game. But at the same time, imagine what's coming down the track, Seamus. Like, it's a joke. It is really a joke. And
you get to get annihilated.
Oh man, it is a
Your
joke.
prize is it's like winning a boxing competition in your local club, and for winning the boxing competition in your local club, you have to box Anthony Joshua or something. It's like, oh yay.
Oh, it's like that meme, that Minecraft meme, if you've ever seen it on TikTok. It's like they were throwing a hurdle up or something like that, and it gets onto a hook, and they were saying, oh yeah, what you win? A sad feeling. Oh. And that's basically Offaly going to the semi-final. I'm sorry to burst the bubble, but it's just reality at this stage. But well done to Offaly, but you're going to get hammered in the semi-final. And just before we get on to the other side, Seamus, I wanted to bring up a tweet from Gooder Cody on Twitter, and he makes a very good point. This is leading on to next week as well. I agree that the Leinster Championship is not competitive, but why isn't the same question asked about the Munster Championship when Kerry breezed through it year after year? Always the same drum beaten when Dublin wins in Leinster. I wanted to get your thoughts on that as well, because Munster is kind of the same situation. We'll talk about it again next week, I'm sure.
Honest truth, because Kerry have been caught. Like, Kerry lost in Munster to Cork. Cork pushed them to the pin of their collars in last year. If they didn't get that very fortuitous penalty, you could argue Cork might have nicked that game. And Cork actually do put it up to Kerry more often than not. Look, it's not as competitive as it was. Definitely around the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was a lot more competitive back then. But I think as well, you look at like teams like Clare, who have been great like for years now. And, you know, you see that hope coming in. Connacht as well, like, I think you can ask questions about it. If you're not Roscommon, Galway or Mayo, like, it's not really a fun competition for you. Like, either, like, Leitrim have been getting absolutely thumped year after year by one of those three teams every time. So, look, I think Aaron made a great point when he was saying about the provincial championships should be seeded. So you'd have the Division 4 teams going up against each other in the first round, and they get the chance to get a championship victory. But the reality is, it ends the same way. The likelihood is Meath actually probably would have made it to a Leinster final. Say if they had been kept away from Dublin the whole way, it's likely they would have made it to a Leinster final. And then we would have just had this result happen. Probably worse, actually, because Dublin probably would have been at a higher level by the time that game came around. Denise says here, Offaly just wanted to improve themselves after a poor league campaign. Realistically, I don't think either team wanted to win. I mean, if we've got to a stage where both teams don't really want to win, then the competition is shot. I think that's just the honest truth. If everybody knows they don't want to play Dublin, and the fact is that Colin O'Rourke in his post-match press conference, he openly said, I think we'll get better over the course of the Sam Maguire. I just hope we're not drawn in the same group as Dublin. Like, I mean, there you go. That's Dublin's main rivals there. And the reality is that I was sitting there thinking, do you know what? At least you're being honest. Like, at least you're being honest. At least you're actually just saying it how it is. You can't walk out of a 16-point defeat and go, geez, that was a close game, wasn't it? Yeah, I tell you what, lads, we're really catching up on them now. 14 years without a win. Nobody was playing last time we beat them. Like, outrageous. Like, nobody knows what it's like to beat Dublin and Leinster. And this is what I'm saying is there's a whole generation of people now that are all, 13, 14, 15 years of age who have absolutely no idea what it's like for Dublin to lose a Leinster match. They've never seen it. Like, just imagine that. But look, Offaly were very good. The goals in the second half, Jack Bryant looked sharp, which I think is the main positive for them to take away from this game. For Laois, it's disappointing. Obviously, the momentum from Division 4, you would have thought it would have carried better into this game. But as the comment from Denise says, maybe they didn't want to win the game. But one team that definitely wanted to win their game, and they came so close, was Wicklow. This was nearly the shock of the weekend. Like, and what would have been crazy is we were talking about the weekend preview, and I was saying I still would back Kildare because I couldn't get my head around the fact that they might lose this game. They nearly did. And we were saying, imagine they lost to Wicklow. They nearly did. I mean, the late 1-1 from Oisin McGrainer, the goal coming from a penalty, and Kildare getting the late winner by Jack Sargent. And look, the reality is there's one positive to take, that, like, okay, Kildare showed a little bit of fight in that they didn't give up. They still managed to grind out the win. But again, man, questions have to be asked.
They do, but at the same time, we might give them the confidence that they do need to get into the Sam Maguire. And they needed a win. They needed something to go their way. And what I will say, usually when something like the Oisin McGrainer penalty did happen, then Kildare would just capitulate. And it was similar. It was a similar situation. I think Donegal got a few points. The Cork game in particular, Tommy Walsh gets a goal before half time, and then good luck, Kildare are gone out of the game then. But to be fair to them, Jack Sargent got that point to win the game, and he had a lot of calmness to stick it over the bar. And let's not forget, Seamus, at that point, Kildare were down to 13 men. Because Owen Doyle got a black card and Kevin Flynn got a red card earlier on. Deserved, in my opinion. There was a high challenge there. But look, Kildare got over the line. Brilliant win for them. And like, Wicklow will have so much regrets over this game. They will. The miss at the end, I think, honestly, I honestly forget who the guy was who missed the open goal at the end.
I think it was Matt Duffy.
Matt.
The exact let me get it. It was Matt Nolan. Matt Nolan missed that chance to put Wicklow ahead.
And I think it was a rush of blood to the head. I just think he got overexcited. He was thinking, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead and win this game. And it's just so agonising for them. And I don't think they'll have a better opportunity than this to reach a Leinster semi-final. It's just so unfortunate for them, but for Kildare, brilliant win for them. And I think actually on GA Go, I was watching the end of that game because the Camogie was at halftime and getting ready for the second half of that one. But I see the commentary from Aaron Kernan, commentating on the penalty, and he said, if this is a moment to epitomise Kildare's season, that's it, conceding the penalty. Because they were in control of this game. They were 15 points to 12 up, and then bang, there's a penalty. And they could have easily been caught. They won the game. Maybe it would give them confidence going into the low game in 2 weeks' time. And I think, honestly, it will, because what they needed was a win, a bit of confidence, and now they've got one. And they got a bit of luck on the way as well. But look, they got there in the end. They got the win. But my God, Wicklow, they'll absolutely be ruining losing this game.
They certainly will. It was definitely one that they left behind them. I mean, to get that 1-1 laid on, Matt Nolan has a chance to steal it, if you like, and it just shot goes wide. Kildare get the winner from Jack Sargent very soon after. Like, it just massive opportunity. And for Kildare, like, they breathed a huge sigh of relief, because however bad the league was, if they'd gone out of the championship to a side that had just got relegated to Division 4, there would have been unbelievable pressure. Like, another stack of it on Glen Ryan and on that Kildare squad as they head into, well, the rest of their season. It would have been, I don't know even how to describe it, just would have been insurmountable, the amount of pressure that would have been on them to then perform in the Tailteann Cup. But Kildare get through, and for that they will now come up against Louth. And I picked that this game would be quite tricky, and it was right up until the last 10 minutes. Then Louth put the burners on 3 goals, 2 from Sam Mulroy and 1 from Kieran Downey. Kieran Downey had already got a goal early in the game. That put Wexford to bed. 4-10 to Louth, 15 points to Wexford. And the thing is, I think this game speaks to how much Louth have evolved, because I was thinking, look, Louth they're used to punching above their weight, like they're used to playing as underdogs and everything like that. But it can be difficult then when you turn around and you're the favourites and you're expected to beat a team who is currently where you were 5-6 years ago. But Louth have shown how much they evolved, because they made light work in the last 10 minutes out of something that was a very difficult tie.
Yeah, and they got a bit of luck in fairness in the first half. Wexford seemed to be the better team in that, and they got the goal through Kieran Downey. And like, Wexford missed a goal chance in the first half, and you're thinking if they got that, they could have easily won this game. But Louth, they got the goals, and in fairness to them, they got over the line at the end. That's 20 goals now in 10 games for Louth, and they know how to get the back of the net. And that's in all competitions as well in 2024. So it's savage going there for them. They scored 6 goals against Fermanagh, 4 goals against Wexford. That is serious scoring, and fair play to Louth for doing that. Wexford, they'll rule their chances, obviously, that they missed, but Louth getting to the Leinster semi-final now, and there's a massive opportunity there for them to get into a second Leinster final in a row. So well done to Louth, brilliant win for them. And Sam Mulroy's penalties were really good, weren't they? One into the top corner, one into the bottom corner, just effortless in many ways. So that's the player Sam Mulroy is, and a good win for Louth.
Certainly so. And like, now they're going into that Leinster semi-final against Kildare. Obviously, Kildare, we've said this, that, you know, playing against Kildare is like walking past a sleeping dog. They're like, they could bite your heels because they could just turn up. Louth beat Kildare in the final round of the league. Louth are in better form, no question about it. But Kildare have the players to give Louth trouble if they get it right, although it'll be very difficult to see them getting it right with the form that they're in. What are you thinking for that game as of now on the 15th of April?
I'm going to say Kildare will win it, because I think
Really?
there's a lot of stake for them on the line. Because, like, this is a huge game for Kildare. If they lose this, Tailteann Cup, hello.
Yeah.
If Louth lose this, it might not be the end of the world, and you avoid a hammering off Dublin in the final. So
it's crazy how many teams then. So explain it to me. So if Kildare get to the Leinster final, you already have Waterford or Clare getting to the Munster final.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to happen, but if Sligo were to beat Galway, then they'd be in the Sam Maguire.
Yeah.
Like, how many teams are actually still at risk?
There's a few actually. If the scenarios were to happen, let's say now we're disregarding Offaly Dublin because we made all the jokes and stuff like that about it, so we'll talk less about it. Waterford Clare, we knew the situation already, so Down are out at the Samagur as it stands. But then if Down beat Armagh, we'll get onto that game later, then that knocks Westmeath out of it. If Kildare beat Louth, that knocks Louth out of it. And if Sligo beat Galway, that knocks Cork out of it.
Mad.
So yeah, we could be in it for a very interesting next 2 weeks.
If Offaly were to beat Dublin, does that knock Cavan out of it?
Yeah. But if Cavan were to get to the Ulster final, then that knocks Monaghan out of it.
Mad. Insane. Well, it's not going to happen, but that's actually mental. Goodness gracious. So we've commented here from Denise said, I'd agree with Matthew. Kildare need to win this just for their reputation. I think that is it. Like, if Kildare go into the Tailteann Cup, I think it'll be a massive blow to what they're trying to do if they don't win it. I think if they go in and if they win it, I think you could see the end of the year finishing how Meath's end of the year finished, where it was all positivity. But I wouldn't be confident that they would win it. I just think that like they're a mess, and I feel like they might up it for a Dublin and they might put in a good performance in that game, but I feel like they trip themselves up more often than not. And this game against Louth, look, I do think that they're dangerous, but I think it's like a type of situation where you've got a team in Kildare that have the potential to be one of the best teams in the country. I really, really believe that. They were Division 1 solid contenders. And then they got relegated and they've completely turned the other way. Louth are so consistent. And Louth turn up pretty much 8 out of 10 every week. Kildare turn up 2 out of 10 some weeks. I think if you're saying, again, you play the game however many times, Kildare will win a couple of them. But I think Louth are slightly more, not slightly, I think they're definitely more consistent. Kildare have more to play for. But I probably would say Louth to take it. I just think they're more consistent. And I think that they also have a bit of chip on their shoulder the way that Mickey Hart left. And I think that they want to prove, the haters wrong and the doubters wrong by getting back to a Leinster final and maybe doing better than they did last year. Ger Brennan also wants to prove how good a manager he can be. I think they still will find their motivations. But that's the Leinster Championship wrapped up. Now the Ulster Quarter Finals. We had 2 Ulster Quarter Finals here. We'll start with this one. Fermanagh Armagh. Armagh 3-11. Fermanagh 9 points. 3 first half goals for Armagh. Put the game to bed pretty early. Conor Turbett, Charlie Oak, Burns and Stephen Campbell with the goals. Armagh making minimal fuss of what could have been a tricky game.
Yeah, this game was over within 10-15 minutes. Unfortunately for Fermanagh. And I just think, even looking at the highlights, I didn't watch the game in full. It looked like every time Fermanagh got caught in the counter-attack, they were doomed. And it was the same in the situation in the Low game. And if they are to go in a long way in the Tailteann Cup, that has to stop from Fermanagh's point of view. Like, you can't concede goals, like being on the attack and then getting caught in the counter-attack so quickly. For Armagh, it's just a situation, good win. And they look like they were back in business, but produce it now in a big game, in the Ulster final, in an All-Ireland quarter final, produce that performance and produce an attacking performance, for God's sake. And please do not let the game go to penalties. so yeah, that's the advice for Armagh. Look, they have to be more consistent to get up to the higher pedestal, but it was a good win yesterday for Fermanagh. They can't perform like that in the Tailteann Cup. But well done to Stephen Campbell, 1-2 from him, Charlie O'Burns. Rian O'Neill, brilliant point from him, and good to see him back in the field and midfield as well, which would be a brilliant position for him. Not sure about the haircut that deserves a yellow card of its own, but look, that's a discussion for another day. But look, brilliant win for Armagh, and Kieran McGeeney will be confident going into the Down game, especially considering Down's performance at the weekend.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to that next. I mean, Armagh definitely made minimal fuss out of what I thought is the type of game that they would make a big fuss out of, and they put it to bed relatively early. Fermanagh losing Ulton Kelm to the black card, like this stat that like they lost him for the 10 minutes in bin, and in that 10 minutes Armagh scored 2 of their goals. So, like, I mean, that just sums it up. But that's Armagh being ruthless, and that's something that they need to be to take their game to that next level. And they faced Down in what is a repeat of last year's Ulster semi-final. Down getting through against Antrim, 13 points to 9 in Port Esler. This game had a lot of handbags, only 4 points from play. not exactly a game for the purists. And that this is the type of game that, when people, it really annoys me when people say, oh, well, Dublin Derry was amazing. Gaelic football doesn't need to be fixed. We still have games like this that are not really enjoyable to watch. And we need to look at, for games like this, how we can push these to go in the way of being more enjoyable. Stuff like the shot clock, like a limit on hand passing, like no going back inside your own half when you step into the other half. Things like that would encourage attacking football should be kind of encouraged for games like this, where it's far too easy to just hold on to the ball. It looks close on the scoreboard. The reality is down-held Antrim at arm's length for the entire game. And to be honest, the handbags was probably the biggest talking point out of this game.
It definitely was. And to be honest, after watching this game, I kind of questioned my decision on a Saturday night. Like, honestly, Seamus, you could talk about the jokes and stuff like that, but it wasn't a good game. Putting it mildly, it just wasn't. And to be fair, like Antrim, like they didn't offer much of the counter attack, but at the same time, like I think there was a situation where there was a player injured from the match day 26, and they physically couldn't replace the guy because they were stuck for numbers for an inter-county team.
Wow.
So that was according to the BBC commentators anyway. So that's the situation that Antrim are in at the moment. They have a few players out with ACLs. There's Rory McCann from St. Mary's Ahagallen out with appendicitis. Obviously, wish him well. So like it's a tough time to be an Antrim player at the moment. And look, they did well enough to close the gap somewhat. Down were very poor. I will say this. If they perform like this against Armagh, they will get swamped. They were very, very poor in this game. Oisin Savage got 3 points from frees, or Murdoch did well, from claiming the ball high up in the middle of the field. But other than that, it just wasn't a good game at all. I think the most controversial part of the game, or the most talking points, was there was 2 yellow cards before the ball was even thrown in, for Joseph Finnegan for Antrim and for Owen Murdoch of Down. There was the punch at half time, obviously. There was the haircut from Cavan Keenan, the cornerback. There was the UFC throw from the same player who should have got a second yellow card. There was all sorts of handbags and things like that, but ultimately the football just wasn't good. And it's not a game that will go down the history books for Gaelic football. It might for USC, but it won't be going down the history books for Gaelic football, that's for sure.
No, it certainly won't. It wasn't a game for the purists, and we will touch on that. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen that on Instagram Reels. The Sunday Game put it up on their official Instagram page. Just an idiot in the Antrim backroom team, like throwing a punch at one of the down backroom team. Like, I mean, at an inter-county game, there's cameras everywhere. Like, did you and the reality is that if you're saying a situation of, did you really think you were going to get away with it? I think they know fine well they're not going to get away with it, but it still doesn't seem to be a deterrent for doing anything. The reality is this guy threw a punch at one of the selectors from the other county's team, and it was right in front of one of the officials. You can see the down fella turn to look at the ref and be like, he's just after punching me in the face. If he is at the next game as part of the Antrim backroom team, this is a joke. If he's at the next game as part of the Antrim backroom team, he's literally thrown a punch at another guy's head in front of the referee, and he knows there's cameras everywhere. And you would think if it's that obvious, you must know that you might well be able to get away with it. Doesn't seem to be much of a deterrent. So then it comes back to, there needs to be a deterrent. He needs to be banned from going to the rest of the season for Antrim's games. Yeah. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you punch someone and you're on the pitch, if you hit someone and you're on the pitch, things happen on the pitch where people talk a bit of crap to each other, and there might be a few hits off the ball and everything like that, and maybe there's stuff going on off the ball that the ref doesn't see, and then a player lashes out and loses his temper. That's different. That deserves its own suspension, but you don't deserve to be gone for the whole year. This guy has no excuse. He's literally not even playing the game. There's no reason for him to lose his temper the way that he did, and to throw such an outrageously obvious punch with the down coach right in front of the referee. That you just be saying, there's no excuse for him to lose his cool the way he did. So he should be met with a harder punishment. Okay, red card for you for the rest of the season.
The most ironic thing about this, Seamus, is the referee actually red carded the wrong guy.
I seen that.
Yeah. So like, it's just it's comical in many ways. It shouldn't be, because you don't want to see that in a games game. No doubt about it. And
I'm sure they'll do something about it. I'm sure they will suspend him. But
at the same time, though, Seamus, this is the same organisation that reduced the Tullamore guy to 12-week ban.
Yeah. For literally like a fan running on and just charging the referee.
Like, but if they are going to be lenient to this guy for that sort of incident, you're thinking, what's the point of putting in an appeal? What's the point in trying to condone this sort of behaviour? Like, it's just ridiculous.
You'd
really
just be saying there's no deterrent for this to happen again and again and again. Don't get me wrong, the GA shouldn't go out to make it boring. And the reality is that as much as we don't like it, the scuffle between Dublin and Derry very much added to the drama of that league final. The scrap between Armagh and Galway very much added to the drama of that game. Intense kind of handbags between teams very much adds to the drama and the spectacle and the appeal of the games. But you see, I always say, man, there's a difference between being tough and being dirty. When you see players from the 90s, like your Tony Scullions and your Mick Lyons and stuff like that, they were hard as nails, but there were certain things that they wouldn't have done. So, like, for example, you have, you have people getting eye gouged. You have, obviously, Tiernan Kelly scraping Damien Comer's face. Like, that's not tough. That's thuggery. Like, that's not a hard man. That's something that a rat does. And you're like, so it's something that you need to stamp that out of the game. Being hard and being competitive, that's good for the game. But scraping faces, fish hooking in the mouth, like gouging eyes, as well, and hurling, like the hitting people with the hurl in places that you don't want to be hitting, everything like that. Like, stuff like that isn't manly. It's not something that I personally respect. And the thing is that I just want to say this as well. Dublin and Derry, they had such a cool moment because they had the little scuffle where everybody was in each other's face. Minute the game was over, shook hands. Great game. Well done. No yapping after the game from Derry of being like, yeah, in your face. None of that. Shook hands. Good game. Respecting that the other team has a competitor. And there was one moment as well with Brian Fenton and Brendan Rodgers, where you've probably seen it, where they were pushing each other and shouldering each other, and then they laughed together. Because it was like respect.
It's brilliant, But at the same, is it true Croker aren't alone in juvenile?
Unsure.
Where would you see that on my Instagram?
Into the stadium. Into the stadium, I wouldn't be sure. I'd imagine you need an adult to go with you to the stadium.
Evelyn, where would you see that? I didn't put it up.
Maybe it was one of the live comments. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. To be honest, I'm too tired. But anyway,
nearly half nine.
But another incident actually that didn't go that didn't get punished enough. Actually, Camogie League for Roscommon. Remember that with Jason Foley a few weeks ago? Stamping on the Achilles tendon. That's not manly either.
Ryan O'Donoghue with Sean Kelly.
Yeah.
And they don't get it's just part of the game. It's part of the rivalry. I'm like, no, that's not part of the rivalry. He knew Sean Kelly's leg was injured and he deliberately went for his leg. That's not sportsmanship. That's not playing hard and competitive. That's playing filthy. And using what knowledge you have of a player's injury to try and injure him. Like, what? And like, I don't know. I have no respect for that. Evelyn says, I think it was Q&A. So maybe
the photo I put up, it was about Bernard Flynn taking the video of the attendance at Crow Park. Epitomised, it was 21,000. So there might have been a kid in that for, I don't know.
Yeah, no, maybe. Yeah, but that's the game. Like down into the Ulster semi-final. We have the two other Ulster quarter-finals next weekend: Tyrone against Cavan, and of course Donegal against Derry. I mean, like that is going to be an absolute feast of action. But it was a very, very interesting weekend of Gaelic football, no question about it. Matthew, thanks for jumping on for this episode with me. Thanks to anybody who got involved in the comments. Let us know your opinions. Really, really love the live comments coming in, especially big shout out to the likes of Denise, Jack, Patrick, Evelyn, everyone that got involved in the live discussion. Sorry if I forgot anyone's name. But yeah, get your comments in the comment section down below. Let us know your opinions on the weekend's action. Until the next video, guys, here on Cluiche, Torara.